as challenges. So to talk a little bit about how AI and quantum computing is going to change our future, I wanted to bring out a 15-year-old student from Vaughan Secondary High School in Ontario, Canada, to talk about the work that she's doing to solve the problems the world is facing using the power and potential of AI and quantum. So please join me in welcoming Brianna Gopaul.
The first time I learned about quantum computing, I was absolutely fascinated. I kept reading, and every single time I learned something new, I just wanted to learn more. I really thought that quantum computing would be the perfect job for me to have in the future. Maybe when I was 25 or 30 years old, almost double the age that I am right now. A couple of months later, I was talking to one of my mentors at the Knowledge Society. And the Knowledge Society is a human accelerator that really tries to develop high school students from their mentality, their knowledge base, and their skill set. And we were deciding, which technology did I want to start learning about? Which technology was I going to start spending the next 5 months talking to experts about, developing some skills in? And I said, well, I'm really interested in quantum computing, but it's just too difficult. It's too complex, it's too abstract, there's so much math behind it. Most of the people who are doing anything in this space right now have multiple degrees. I mean, how could a 14-year-old possibly be able to do anything within this field? He looked back at me with a bit of a weird, confused face, and he said, Brianna, just do it anyways. Woo! And so here I am today talking in front of all of you amazing people about what I've been working on in this space. But first, I want to give a huge thanks to everybody at Microsoft. You guys put in so much effort to make this event happen, and I really appreciate all the work that you guys done. I'm super excited to be here today, and I would like to also thank all the educators that are in the audience who flew out from 90 different countries. What you guys are doing to prepare the students for the future is amazing. Now, before we talk about the technology, I want to first tell you why we even need quantum computing in the first place. This is Moore's Law. Every single year, we've been doubling the number of transistors we can fit on a chip. The more transistors there are, the more computing power we have. But in the next couple of years, we're going to hit a physical limit of the number of transistors we can fit on a chip. Now that becomes a huge problem because we're going to hit a limit of the amount of computational power we can have. And in the next decade, we're going to be facing some of the most difficult problems we have yet. And difficult problems require tons of computational power. I mean, let's just take drug discovery by example. It takes 10 years to get a drug from the lab to the market and $2.6 billion. And that's because drug discovery is a super complicated process. It's kind of like trying to find the optimal path in a maze, to go through every single path in the maze to find the best one. Take that problem, multiply it by 1,000 different mazes. That's drug discovery. Self-driving cars are really the same. For a self-driving car to make a left turn, it has to consider the speed of the cars approaching it. Is there a car 50 meters away, 100 meters away? What are the conditions on the road like? Is there a pedestrian? What is the age of that pedestrian? Now, we're having a lot of trouble figuring out problems like this. What if we want a self-driving car to know about all the objects on the road and all the pedestrians on the road? That's going to be impossible because we're limited by the amount of computational power we have. If we don't figure out a way to exceed the amount of computational power we have 3, 5, 10 years down the road, we are going to be stuck with a bunch of really complicated problems and no feasible solutions. So what we need is a paradigm shift. We need to completely change the way we're thinking about solving these problems, because otherwise we may not be able to. So scientists have been thinking of these new fancy computers called quantum computers. And from interning at Xanadu, a photonic quantum computing company in Toronto, and also working with a lead quantum computing company in Berkeley called Rigetti, I can tell you this technology is mind-blowing. You see, if we were to give a classical computer a maze, it would go through every single path in the maze to find the most optimal one. We give this same problem to a quantum computer, it can go through all the paths exponentially faster. That means a problem that originally took 150,000 years to solve can now take a couple of seconds. That's crazy. And so because I got so excited about this area in particular, I started to do more research, started to read more, started to learn more about different concepts, different algorithms within quantum computing, and I started to reach out to experts. One of the first companies that I reached out to was called Xanadu, and they're working on photonic quantum computing. So I messaged the CEO on LinkedIn. Hi, I'm Brianna. I'm a 15-year-old. I'm really interested in quantum computing. Could we possibly have a meeting? 6 meetings later with the CEO that basically consisted of me ranting on how excited I am about this technology, what I'm working on currently, what I'm learning, and what I would love to do at Xanadu. He offered me an internship. And there, thank you. There, I got to work on some of the most exciting work I have ever been able to. I started to learn how to code and create quantum circuits. And being somebody who had not known anything about coding, this was super hard. I was like, I've never created a normal program. You want me to create a quantum program? What? And so this process of learning took a lot of iteration, a lot of practice, and a lot of help from experts in the field. And the first really interesting quantum circuit that I was able to created this weird quantum state. And it kind of looks like a messed up volcano, but it's actually called a Wigner function. And what a Wigner function does is it describes the position and momentum of a qubit. What's really interesting is that if you see that below the x-axis, the red region, that actually shows that we have a negative position and a negative momentum. Just think about that for a moment. How could we possibly have a negative position and a negative momentum? That makes no sense to how our world currently works. But things work on a very different way within the quantum mechanical world. And that's why we can take a problem that took 150,000 years and make it a couple of seconds. Now, I think these quantum circuits are really interesting, and so I actually wanted to show you a live demo of how we can run quantum circuits on the cloud from a quantum computer that's continents away. So what you see here is another quantum circuit, and each line that you see actually represents a wire. One wire represents one qubit, so in this circuit, we have 3 different qubits. Above all of our qubits, we have a bunch of different quantum gates, and quantum gates can be represented by, they have a mathematical representation, and it essentially transforms the state of the qubit in some weird way. So in this program in particular, I put the squeezing gate and a measurement gate. What the squeezing gate does is it actually quite literally squeezes the position or the momentum of a quantum state, so it kind of looks like this. So now I can take this program, this really simple quantum circuit that I made in a couple of seconds, and I can actually run it on a real quantum computer continents away. So I run the program, and I get this funky quantum state. And quite literally, again, it just squeezed the Wigner function. Now, quantum states are really interesting, and you could be staring at this thing for hours because it just looks so cool. But they have no practical application. We can't actually use this quantum state and do something with it. What we can do within quantum computing is create more complicated quantum circuits. And these are the quantum circuits that then go on to create quantum algorithms. And quantum algorithms are really the thing that is going to take a problem to be 150,000 years to a couple of seconds. So a couple of months ago, some TKS students, the Knowledge Society students, and we traveled to Berkeley, California. And we got to work with one of the world's leading quantum companies called Rigetti. And there, we worked on an algorithm that could take the drug discovery process from being 10 years and $2.6 billion to potentially a fraction of that. We worked on an algorithm called a variational quantum eigensolver. And what it does at a high level is it simulates the energy levels of a molecule and then does machine learning on it to optimize the molecular structure. And using this algorithm and a bunch of other algorithms that people are going to be creating within quantum computing, we're hoping that we can then tackle some of the world's most difficult issues. But I really want to go back to this idea of Moore's law and how we need to figure out a way to exceed the amount of computational power we have in the next 3, 5, 10 years. Because otherwise, we won't be able to solve some of the world's most difficult problems that we're going to be facing in the next decade. Quantum computing is the way in which we can surpass this limiting computational power. And a couple of months ago, I would never think that I would be on this stage talking to all of you. But when given the right sense of direction and the right mentality, even a 15-year-old can change the future. Thank you.
So, can we just take a moment to recognize that we have amazing students like Brianna all over the world that are going to drive the future? It's pretty incredible to think about the power of mindset, the confidence that we can give our students, and the technologies to solve challenges. I'm curious, how have you changed the way in which you learn your traditional subjects, maybe as you think about the experience that you've had with quantum and the power that it presents?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I go to school, I have a completely different experience now. I try to optimize school to get the most value out of it. And so, like, when I'm talking to my teachers and I may have already learned something, I'll tell them, oh, actually, I'm working on this part of quantum computing, and so I've already learned this part about it. Can I actually do the separate project that dives deeper into this concept? And that's how I try to just optimize how much value, how much can I learn from school today with the given knowledge that I have within quantum computing as well.
And you've learned boss mentality.
Boss mentality.
What recommendation would you have for the educators here to take some of the things that you've learned and maybe some, as a student, what are the things that you'd like to see from these educators in the room?
Mm-hmm. I think students really need to start thinking about the future. I think students in general, we've always been thinking about the past and learning about history, which is valuable, but we need to start thinking about the technologies or sciences that will disrupt 5, 10, 15 years from now, because we're going to be the people who are actually working within those industries. And if we have no clue about them, how are we supposed to do a great job at paving the future into the right way?
Well, Brianna, I think the future is in good hands with students like you. So thanks very much for joining us here at E2.
Thank you.
Take care. It's pretty incredible. There are students like that all over the world. I get a chance to meet some amazing individuals. I get very confident that when we raise expectations for students, they're going to exceed it consistently. So all of you are bringing that to your classrooms, and certainly it's tough to follow an amazing presenter like Brianna. So